Hi, boys and girls. This is Ms. Kathy. I'm so happy you've joined me today for another story just for you. His Master's Bagpipes by Daphne Cox. Mrs. Smith was cleaning the kitchen when she heard the noise. Pausing in her work, she listened a moment. There, it came again, a low whine and a snuffing sound. Looking through the screen door, she saw a small Maltese terrier sniffing at the step. She left her work and went outside to look at the stranger. He was a lovely little dog, but oh, so dirty and bedraggled. Plainly he was lost. No owner of such an expensive type of dog would allow it to get in such condition. The best thing to do, she decided, was to take him in until she could find whom he belonged to. The owner would certainly advertise for him. The first thing he needed, she felt, was food and a good bath. She offered him a big drink of milk right away. He lapped and lapped as if he would never stop, then looked pleadingly at her when the dish was empty. How those bright little eyes could talk! She filled the bowl again, and he wagged his tail with pleasure. When the second bowl of milk was licked dry, she picked the dog up and popped him into a laundry tub of warm water. He didn't mind having a bath. He seemed to realize she was trying to help him. When he was dried, she gave him a good brushing so that his white silky hair gleamed in the sunlight. "Oh, you're a beautiful little boy," she exclaimed, hugging him. A little pink tongue licked her ear. "I wonder what your name is. Joey? Terry?" She tried out a few names hopefully, but he responded to none. "Well, we'd better call you something. How about Snuffy?" "Yes, Snuffy, that's what you were doing around my door, snuffing. Would that do?" The small dog wagged his tail as she put him down. "Snuffy!" she called and walked inside. Snuffy followed. Soon he was used to the name and settled in his new home, but Mr. and Mrs. Smith tried not to get too fond of him. Surely his owners would advertise. Each day they read the lost and found column of their local papers, but no one seemed to have lost a white Maltese terrier. 6 months later, Snuffy was still with them. By now he was regarded as one of the family, and the Smiths had come to love him dearly. One day they decided to have a musical evening at their home. They put Snuffy outside in his basket, but they didn't shut the small dog door Mr. Smith had made. Usually it was sufficient to say, "Stay, Snuffy," and he would obey. As the guests arrived, Snuffy watched them come into the house, but he didn't get up from his basket. As the evening wore on and it became dark, Snuffy went to sleep. First a pianist performed, then a violinist, and so on. Snuffy took no notice. He slept on. Then, suddenly, he was awake. That sound! He knew it! Way back in the past, his master had made that weird squeaking melody that was music in the little dog's ears. He jumped out of his basket in a flash. He barged through his little door and rocketed down the hall. Not pausing, he tore into the living room, took one look at the seated man playing the bagpipes, and with a yelp of joy flung himself onto the player's lap and jumped up and down between the pipes to lick the astounded face behind them. For one startled moment, everyone in the room gaped. Then the piper gasped, "Mac, it's you! Oh, Mac!" Dog and pipes were folded together in one great bear-like hug. The Smiths saw with dismay that their Snuffy had found his real owner, and they realized he would have to go away. "Why, Mac," said Mr. Reeves the piper, "you've been lost for 9 months. I advertised for 6 weeks, but no one brought you back." "That explains why we didn't know you were the owner," Mrs. Smith said. "We found him 6 months ago and watched the paper for weeks." "He always used to sit next to me when I played," Mr. Reeves said. "I reckon he heard the pipes and he knew he'd found me again." It was obvious that Mac had found his real master. He had eyes for no one else. When Mr. Reeves stood up to go, it was plain that Mac intended to go with him. No longer did he consider himself Snuffy. Mac is very much like some people. When they are small, they learn to love God, but as they grow older, they lose sight of him and wander away. They get lost in another world. They might even seem happy doing things God has told them not to do. But one day, something reminds them of God. Maybe a song, maybe a person, maybe a flower or an animal. Something sets them to remembering, and they find their way back. And once they find the master again, there is no looking back. They are Mac, not Snuffy. They have eyes for no one else but Jesus. It will be said in that day, "Behold, this is our God. We have waited for him, and he will save us. This is the Lord. We have waited for him. We will be glad and rejoice in his salvation. Isaiah 25:9, New King James Version.
The story you have heard today is from Guide's Greatest Stories, written by various authors and compiled by Randy Fischel, and used with permission from the Pacific Press Publishing Association. If you're interested in any other books published by the Seventh-day Adventist Church, please visit AdventistBookCenter.com or call 1-800-765-6955.
This podcast is a production of the Carolina Conference of the Seventh-day Adventist Church.